I'm sure everything you've experienced so far was because of the influence of Cambridge. No? I thought we were all graduates. If not Cambridge, then at least Berkeley. So, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, goodness me. Wasn't it fun going to school? It was an education about education, if nothing else. And that's what I'd like to bring forward here today. The education of education. Because you see, we were all educated through education how to behave. Definitely so. You know, in this thing called formal education, there are so many different layers and pieces, sub-layers. It is a really big, big thing. Personally, I now look upon it as such a blessing that I was considered such an outcast. Because I was not pampered and coddled. I wasn't groomed and set up to be left brain dominant. Although they did try hard, and I'm sure they tried hard with you too. As a matter of fact, some of you may be so convinced that it's the best thing that happened to you, your education, and please be happy living in only half your brain. Hey, we don't realize it, but the system of higher education is designed to favor left brain dominancy. And the reason it is because left brainers are so much more easily controlled. Now, it's done under the guise that left brain, my goodness, you can learn, you can memorize, you can follow. You can be a very good citizen. Remember getting your report card? Wasn't that an exciting time? Exciting can go in a number of directions, right? For me, no, it always went in one direction. Always. Fascinatingly enough, that while you can learn with your left brain, it, in many instances, is done at the exclusion of your right brain. So, think about it now for a moment. We know that the left side of the brain, of course, favors analytical, logical, mathematical, and the obedient self, whereas the right brain conjures up heightened creativity, intuition, morality, and imagination. Now just imagine now that you have both sides of your brain working together in harmony. That, believe it or not, is our normal state. That's the state wherein we thrive. That's the state wherein we have the capacity to be receptive to influences that are other than just in a book, other than what you've memorized. And then, because of what you have learned, you're able to put it into effect with a sense of wholeness. But let's go back. Let's look and see what's happening to our children today that happened to us. And then the possibility of what could carry on from there with an awakening. I can remember, I'm going to digress just a little bit, that when I was coming up, it was probably a little different than some of you younger ones, in that The reward for not following authority was called punishment. It probably still goes on in some schools today, although there has been a shift and a change. But I can remember many times of bearing the manifestation of my corrective experiences with either my teacher, the principal, or the dean of boys. And if that wasn't enough, then of course I went home, and I went home either with a letter or a phone call that preceded me. And if my father were home, well then he'd just finish off what they left off. And that's because, you see, he grew up with the same education. So he came to believe that what was good for him was good for me. But then, just a question. Do we have any rebels in the congregation today? A few rebels? The world sighs a sigh of relief for the rebels that exist. Now, kids who really are problem kids, either they are rebelling or they just happen to be sensitive. They like living in an alpha state. They like using their imagination. They like daydreaming. They aren't so wrapped up in what's in a book. But if they don't snap to toe the line, then they could really find themselves in some interesting situations, because the teachers will get to the parents, and the parents will come to feel from the teachers that there's something wrong with their child and they really should do something about it. You should take your child to a doctor and have some test runs and make sure that there's not something wrong with your child. Here's the child going and seeing a doctor because the child's under the impression there's something wrong with me. Now, that right there can be enough to scare the hell out of a lot of kids, to where they will just let go of who they are and begin to comply to who they are being taught they must become. Can you imagine going to the doctor and a doctor saying, "Well, hello there, Johnny. Hello there, Sally. You're screwed up and I'm going to fix you. Tests conclude you have a definite learning disability. I have just the right thing. It will be in the form of a prescription, and you will take one of these in the morning, and then perhaps more as time goes on." Adderall, any of you familiar with Adderall? Ritalin, any of you familiar with Ritalin? Not too bad, Ritalin. Only good. Okay. But look at this. Here we are discussing how this organized, hulking monstrosity called formal education really works to get us to be compliant to the rules and the regulations that already exist. So you look at this and you begin to wonder, do I really want to subject my children to this brand of education? And do I also want to let my children, under the guise of this education, be subject to all kinds of inoculations that the school system says your child must have, otherwise your child cannot come to our school? What a blessing! Well, I'm not surprised at the resistance that I'm encountering with this subject matter, because, hey, we've all been programmed this way, and there's going to be that part of us that comes and rises up and says, hey, wait a minute. This is a good thing. Yeah, and what about the rest of you? I don't mean somebody else. I mean, what about the rest of you, who's in you, who wants to express through you, but has no real encouragement from the you who's present to express itself? Now, speaking of rebels, those who didn't earn a college degree, those who perhaps didn't even finish high school, what happens to them? Well, hopefully they just fall off the radar. Society doesn't want to have to mess with them anyhow. They're just fodder. Let's have them enlist in the service, get drafted. Let's have them go to war. Let's have them get killed. Let's get them out of the way. They're the unenlightened. They're the uninformed. This world is for the ones who are left brain dominant. Make money. Be powerful. Live your greed. So, but then, what about Richard Branson? James Cameron? Abraham Lincoln? What about Frank Lloyd Wright? Thomas Edison? Mark Zuckerberg? Steve Rosenblatt? Henry Ford? You see, these people actually have been really great contributors to the well-being of the world in a variety of ways. And yet, they didn't have that 4.0 average. They didn't get the paper, the degree that signified they were far more intelligent. So, it's an interesting thing. And sometimes it does actually cause you to wonder, what did these people see that the person with a 4.0 average missed? What is it that you're seeing that your teachers, your instructors, your professors gave you a hard time about? What is actually in you that wishes to come forth and express through you as the real you, that you feel somewhat intimidated to allow to express because it may meet with an uncertain amount of resistance, ridicule, and criticism? You see, while all of this comes together as a very slight presentation of what we encountered and what others are encountering right now in school, and perhaps our children will encounter, this is designed to help you to, in this moment, reconsider your education. And I would, of course, encourage you to reconsider it from a basis of it's unfinished. There are many more things for you to learn. Things about yourself. Things about the way this society works. Things about the way the power structure is so favored. And is there something that you truly would like to bring forward and live that will make you feel good about you being you? Or do you want to just fall back into the shadows and let things continue going on the way they're going on to the detriment and the well-being of true enlightenment, true wholeness? So, you have a left brain and a right brain that go together to make a whole brain. Even if you find yourself listening to one side, it might mean you're just being thoughtful. And there's a possibility that that's the heavier side of your head. So let's come to a place of looking and seeing the time that we're living and who we are, how we can do something that reflects itself in our awakening. That then we choose to integrate and put into play in life to where we feel good about who we are, regardless of whether the left brain peers around us agree or not. I know that we have this operating agenda that in many instances has been supported by the educational society, and that is, don't trust yourself. You have a problem, go to a professional who will take care of your problem for you. Don't ever think that you might be able to live through this and find a livable solution that will cause you to feel good without having to empty your wallet to somebody else to give you something that may not even be the same. You see, I really want to encourage you to become who you are. I really am encouraging you to look at this and see how you have been taught and how this has translated itself into your belief self, who you then bow down and worship to as if it were a god, when it really is an idiot in disguise. Now, you may take exception to that, but if you continue in your awakening process, you're going to come to realize, I'm not making reference to you at all. I'm making reference to something that you believe is you that isn't you one bit. So perhaps what we are doing is, even though it doesn't look that way, and even though it may not seem that way in this world about us, we are affecting a change in the world by choosing to become, as it was described in the opening statements of today, we're becoming heart-centered, to where we learn to trust our heart and get out of our heads and realize that there have even been subjects written on this matter, that the heart is so much more capable of being the true guiding influence in our lives that then sends signals to the brain, that's a two-syllable word, the brain, to where the brain follows what the heart says, instead of the heart staying muted, as was intended by our higher educational system to rule out any kind of interference. So, perhaps this lecture would have come off differently had I not have been a rebel. But I make no apologies. As a matter of fact, I and myself at this point in my life look and see. If it were not for my receptivity to something other than my left brain awareness, I would not be here today as I am, with a soulful intention to help you help yourself, to help you truly wake up and take whatever education you have and blend it with your true nature that you're beginning to awaken to. And in this blend, find that you truly, in yourself, are able to feel good about you being you, instead of you fill in that space. That's for you to do. So, that's it. Thank you.
For more information about the Metaphysical Church of Enlightenment or the Rodin Foundation, please go to our website at www.rodin.org. If you have been inspired by the revelations shared in these podcasts, please donate to the Rodin Foundation's ongoing efforts to help others help themselves at www.rodin.org/donate.